Welcome to this video. This is coverage for day 2 of the World Rapid Championships in Dubai. And yeah, the leader after round after round 10, yes, and day 2 is not very surprisingly actually Magnus Carlsen, our world champion. He pretty much had a very good day on this day 2. He had started with 4 out of 5 in day 1 and repeated the same score, winning 3 games, drawing 2. Very solid performance as usual. He never really got into much trouble and was pressing in most games and winning important ones. So he's leading the tournament. I'll look at 2 games from Magnus and then switch to some other games and also show who's the hottest contender to chase Carlsen on the 3rd day. Let's start here. Carlsen against Movsesian. To be honest, I made a mistake here. Need to load this again. Just a moment. Okay, load it. Carlsen, Movsesian. Yeah, Movsesian is very strong GM also. It's been around 2,700 for years and years, playing for Armenia now. Played for the Czech Republic for a while. Okay, we don't want to do this game completely, each move. I want to focus on the position that we get somewhat later. We have a Queen's Gambit Rogozin. Very popular opening nowadays, giving black quite good results. And around here we see a typical transformation with d5. White is gaining some space here with d4, d5, just before black is able to play e5 himself or play d5, bishop d7 to get rooks to the c file. Yeah, black here does not have much choice. He needs to retreat the knight. Queen b4, there was b5 now threatened, and now e5. Yeah, what about this position? Is this equal, or is this something for one side? Yeah, if we look at what happens here, we see that white has slightly more active pieces. The queen on b3 is a nice asset, and there's also the knight possibly joining on c4, especially the knight c4 to b6, c4 to a5. This can be slightly tricky for black. There is also this bishop on f5, which is quite an interesting piece. If we look at what happens, we have this these trades, which is logical. The c file is open and we will have those trades there. We look at this now after e4. We see that this knight on c8 is blocking the retreat square c8. Yeah? Black pretty much would like to stay on this diagonal. Sorry, I'm not sure why this keeps popping up. Wants to stay on this diagonal as g6, and this is how he must react now. Bishop c6, g6 is the only move really. As bishop d7 is hanging b7, cannot do that. And this is a slightly uncomfortable thing for black. Yeah, you would like to have the bishop helping in defense of the queen side. Now it is somewhat off here on g6. It attacks e4, that's a good thing, but that's the only thing that it's doing. This is not ideal. However, the whole situation is of course not fatal for black. Bishop g4. White's bishop can be activated, and knight to a7, nothing else really, and a4, gaining space. Queen c7, getting on the c file. Yeah, and it's difficult now to make any headway. White is doing those little things that help. h4, this gains space, and now black only has a choice between 2 things, and both are not really what you want. You don't want to get the bishop to h7, yeah. So playing, let's say, something like this, just a waiting move. You get pushed back to h7, and now this bishop is having a really hard time to get back into the game. It's really ridiculously posted there. You also really don't want to play f6, as this is allowing the bishop to come to e6. Yeah, concretely also knight c4 is a big problem.
Check.
Yeah, and then those kind of discoveries are a problem. Yeah, at the moment, knight d6, there is queen c1 f4.
Check.
Yeah, but white can even afford to play a slow move and then take on d6. Yeah, well, you don't want to play f6. It's just a weakening of the e6 square. So at the end, Movsesian played h5. And this is also not a move that you really want to do, because you put it on a light square where the bishop is in a way always, yeah, the piece that needs that protects the pawn, and he is somewhat tied to this pawn. Not the end of the world, but a little concession. a5, yeah, putting those on dark squares makes some sense to here, to make sure that with b6, then bishop is not able to attack the pawns. We have a funny situation, really, if we look at this here, where white has, technically speaking, the bad bishop on d3. But yeah, he's got the pawns on light squares. But these terms don't really apply that much, the bad bishop and good bishop, if one side is having a huge advantage in space. And here white really has a quite substantial advantage in space. With more space, it's not such a problem that you, technically speaking, have the bad bishop, because your bishop has enough space within your position to maneuver. And let's say black's bishop is technically the good bishop, but what it is actually doing on g6, it's yeah, absolutely doing nothing. It takes e4, but this will easily be resolved later when white can play f3, for example. The other thing that is clearly happening in this position, there can be situations where black has problems to defend the h5 pawn. Yeah, note something like this, knight to here, bishop e2, and then it's gone on h5. Attacking twice and hard to defend. Can get a knight to f6, but yeah, this is just a feature of the position. Yeah, is it that white is clearly better? I don't think so. Black still is very solid, but it is very difficult to defend such a passive position. And we have this typical kind of game where white is slowly probing and advancing. One problem for black really is, if you look at the knight here, yeah, you would absolutely love to improve this this piece, but where exactly? You would like to get it to c5, but this is tough to do. There's not really a good route to do that. And also, once you move it away, there might be knight c4 coming, attacking b6 and d6, and one of the pawns get lost. Black has some problems with his pieces, but it's not the end of the world. He defended well at first. g5, yeah, gaining some space. Maybe f4 later, if possible. Yeah, white is gaining the most space that there is possible. Yeah, and I think here we have the crucial position of the game. Up to now, Movsesian has defended well, I think. It's yeah, it's not much fun and everything, but probably white cannot win if black is defending perfectly. I think here he needed to play knight to g6. This is, I think, a necessary move. After f5, which is probably what white will do. I mean, I don't think that knight g2 can be enough. After that, black is just able to take everything off. And I don't think white has any winning chances here. He can attack the h5 pawn, but this is always easily defended. Black can even just put this here. And how is white going to get ahead here? Don't think so. Yeah, white must play f5. Okay. F5 here, and after that you go to F4, and yeah, the knight is now actively placed on F4. This is relatively speaking actively. If we look at bishop F1, the knight has no square to go to, but still it is not evident how white is making any progress here. The knight F4 is protecting the H5 pawn. And if white tries for a double attack of the pawn, like king f2, bishop e2, black can even consider to just take off the bishop. I really don't think that white can win this. I see no way, at least. The big difference to the game is, and we should really compare it directly to the game, he played bishop to e8, after which Carlsen played f5. Yeah, and here we have the same structure, but with the knight on e7. And on e7, the knight is reduced to total passivity. It cannot do anything. And white's general plan, yeah, well, is shown in the game. He attacked the pawn, and now he brought the king over. It is not strictly necessary to do so, but it is just the best technical way to play. He prevents b5. That there's no kind of counterplay, and now the king is going all the way to a3, b4, gaining the utmost on the queen side. And now, when the queen side here is totally taken care of, white now can think about the h5 pawn. This is still the main weakness, and we see
check.
White is traveling all the way to g3. The thing I mentioned a long time ago, after h4, h5, this pawn can be a weakness. And it is falling right now. Black has no way to defend it. And this would have been a big difference. Imagine, just try to imagine this position with the knight on f4 instead on g8. Then h5 is secured. Yeah, and now it is falling. And the rest is, like child's play for Carlsen with this technique. Yeah, here black resigned because of a Zugzwang. He's losing the b pawn or the f6 pawn, and after that there is no use in trying to fight. So a good win for Carlsen in typical style, this kind of dry position that he excels in. Okay, the next game is again by Magnus. Just a moment. Yeah, and here it is loaded. Yeah, I'm cutting out the loading process because it gets this incredibly loud noises by the piece movements. I have to load the games one by one from a file, as ICC, where I'm doing this, does not have all the game easily accessible here. For the top tournaments, they mostly have it. It's easily accessible for them. Okay, this is Carlsen Caruana. This is from round 10, actually. Very decisive game where it was decided if Carlsen takes the lead or Caruana. Let's see. Interesting opening by Caruana. It is quite apparent that if you look at the openings of the top players in those rapid events, they very often play, they don't play the absolute main openings, but go for something slightly offbeat, nothing crazy, but yeah, an opening like that, the Philly doors. This is a perfectly okay opening. It's not one of those top openings for black where you can play for full equality and so on, or try to simplify or get a super sharp position. It's just a position to get the game going. Yeah, like develop stuff and get your pieces out. A slight space disadvantage, but it's a playable position. Yeah, ED4 is an interesting way to play. I wasn't really aware that this is a line, but it seems to be. Normally they castle here, and white is now playing rook e1 or a4, those kind of moves. Taking an interesting decision. I think one idea is that after knight takes, there are ideas nowadays to play quick knight to b6, attacking the bishop, and well, this is not a great idea because of, because of c5, when your bishop on b3 is getting into slight trouble. So Carlsen took with the queen, and again knight b6, and oops, slight delay here. Bishop retreated to b3, castles. Yeah, we have a position that is quite typical of this this opening for black. Black has a space disadvantage, but is fairly solid. It's yeah, it's a disadvantage, but it's manageable. Yeah, e5, bishop f4. Yeah, white has good development for sure. Bishop to g4, developing. Queen d3. Yeah, knight d7. This intends to put the knight on c5 and the bishop on f6, slowly trying to activate the pieces. Knight d4. And white puts this knight on b5. That's a fairly typical way to play in various positions that have this e4 pawn versus the d6 pawn. This can happen in a King's Indian, in an Old Indian, and other lines where e and d pawn are exchanged. Sometimes also in the Budapest Gambit. When you put the knight on b5, you put pressure on the whole black queen side. The knight is always attacking c7 and d6, so that you cannot easily play c6 to expel it. So you have to live with this knight on b5 for quite a while, and sometimes there's even knight d5 coming, and then you cannot expel it with c6. So this is a fairly normal way to put pressure on black. Nothing terrible or anything, but just a typical maneuver. Yeah, black decided to get rid of this bishop here on b3, gaining the bishop pair. But you won't keep it for very long, because what I said, this knight d5 business is happening. And yeah, here the pressure on c7 is getting so serious that black must take it. E d5. And now Caruana played rook c8. Yeah, it looks totally normal. c7 was attacked. And I suppose he didn't play knight c5 because of this tactical shot knight c7, which at first looks really bad for black. But it is not that terrible. Black has a very weird but satisfactory play. He can play bishop to h4. Yeah, of course, the capture bishop d6 is totally wrong. But it's quite remarkable with bishop h4, this counter attack. You make sure that the pressure on d6 is reduced, and after this you can even simply take here and play this position, which is yeah, maybe slightly better for white. There are some attacking chances on the king side if you think about those kind of ideas. But this is better than the game. Black is having a good position on the knight on c5. Yeah, it's playable. Rook c8. Yeah, and this has a slight problem, which Carlsen immediately spots. He plays bishop to d2. Yeah, and now the problem is a5 hangs. And how do you protect this pawn? It's not so easy. You absolutely cannot play a move like b6. This is leading to a terrible situation with the knight coming to c6. Black is totally boxed in then. Don't want that. And yeah, what else is there? He must play bishop e5, and this is what happened. Bishop e5, queen h3. This is in fact debatable. It's possible that queen f3 was better. Yeah, the idea being that the queen is having a look, let's say, on c6 again. Bishop b2 is not really a problem. You can play bishop rook c2, and something like this is quite clearly favorable for white. Yeah, if we consider such a position, just for argument's sake. Here black can only for a while play knight c5, and now b4 is the problem. You cannot take. This knight is going to get lost. It's going to get lost, or you must play very weird stuff like rook a8 and allow the capture. The queen side is really under some pressure. Carlsen's move seems to be a bit less powerful. He played queen h3 and then c6 was possible. It still looks slightly better for white, but it's not as convincing maybe as putting the knight on f3, the queen on f3. We have this happening now. A neat tactical shot on a5. This was what he has planned. And it happened. This happened. Takes. And now the move queen d2. Yeah, it seems that this is maybe not so precise, but it's it's a very difficult thing to look at those rapid games and check it with computers, and they will point out numerous inaccurate moves. It's simply human. You cannot play if you have some seconds per move. You cannot play perfectly. That's clearly the case. It seems that instead of queen b2, there was queen b4, which was a bit more precise, attacking b3. Yeah, one point is that after queen b7, there is
check.
This funny move. Yeah, but these kind of things are very tough to spot for a human, of course.
Check.
Yeah, white does not need to take and shouldn't take probably, but this is the point. Yeah, he played queen d2, and this has a drawback which also was not played by Carlsen. Queen c7, queen b2, queen c2 is securing a very stable white advantage. Carlsen played rook c1, and this is again a very human thing to do, because if you calculate this here, it's just totally clear. Black is attacking, I'm sorry about this, is attacking b2 twice, and the only thing that you really calculate after rook f1, at least this would be my approach. I'm not Carlsen, but I would mostly look at those captures. I mean, black wants his pawn back, and it turns out that those captures are indeed really a mistake. Well, bishop b2 can be easily handled. We take here. It's clear that the a pawn is strong, and even now d5 is not really good. The bishop is misplaced there. He took with the queen. This happened, and queen b7, and now the a pawn is super strong. I think this is almost a decisive advantage now. Queen b2 really was a mistake, but to see that to see the right move is not easy. You shouldn't take on b2 at all. You should play queen to d5. Yeah, covering this and keeping both pawns here attacked. Yeah, and here black has much more activity in comparison. One important thing is, for example, if you look at b4, queen c4, it's a good move. Yeah? If consider this.
Check.
This is full of tactical tricks, and the real reason why queen d5 is better are those little tricks. Yeah, so that white here needs to lose a move due to this threat. This, for example. Then you take queen b7, and then you take a4. And you have equality. It's very difficult to do this with limited time. I don't have the times that they have left. Yeah, I don't have it available, so you cannot really say, okay, he had 3 minutes on the clock. Should he see that? I don't know. It's very tricky. He took on b2, queen b7, queen b3, and a5, and it turns out this is pretty clearly shown by Houdini or any other engine. The a pawn is decisive now. Black really has no defense. He tried d5, queen c6. Yeah, that's an important intermediate move. You can also start a6, but rook b8 looks a bit uncomfortable. Yeah, it's playable. You can play rook c1, but it makes it somewhat more difficult. This is easier. First this, and now rook c1, playing with this checkmate threat. Very often checkmates, or rook c8, yeah, if black takes here, for example, it's rook c8 mate. Checkmate threats are very important tool in the end game, especially here with the weak back ranks. Yeah, black is going for g6, securing some luft for the king, but it's too late. Yeah, the a pawn now is running. Yeah, black cannot take on b5 really. Well, he played queen a2. We look at this, or yeah, or the immediate a7. That's maybe even more precise. It leads to the same endgame.
Check.
Yeah, and here white will also win the d5 pawn, and this endgame is a relatively easy win. White is coming all the way over to e8 with the king and attacks f7 from the 7th rank with the rook. This is the winning idea in this endgame. Yeah, he played queen a2, and after some preparation here, rook c8 is the next idea. Getting rid of the defending rook. Now a8 queen is coming.
Check.
And black
Check.
could give a couple of checks, pushing the king all the way to h3, but the queen on c8 is nicely protecting this diagonal. There's nothing happening. Queen d3, and white could promote. Queen f1.
Check.
You simply have queen g2 and can block the check. Yeah, this was a decisive game of round 10, which brought Carlsen the lead in the tournament. So very crucial game. So who's also at the top? Let's have a look at Nakamura. He had this bad start, losing against Iturizaga in the first round, but he staged a comeback. He won a couple of games. He had only 3 points after the first 5 rounds, but then he started to win some games, and among those, okay, I'm spoiling the result. I'm sorry. He played Morozevich, always interesting. Let me load this game. Okay, game is loaded. Moro playing e4, and the Sicilian with b3. Yeah, this is a funny line that has gained some popularity in recent years. One reason was that it was even played by Kramnik, and Kramnik is always a trendsetter in openings. People very much look at what Kramnik is doing and yeah, study the stuff that he's playing. It's usually very well founded, his opening choices. Okay, b3, knight c6, knight f6. Very logical, black getting the knights out. Yeah, and we have this advance. And g6. Yeah, all this looks really normal, I think. Yeah, white, theoretically speaking, can play e6 here, opening the diagonal, but f6 is perfectly acceptable for black.
Check.
This is with e5 coming pretty nice for black. So he developed him with knight bishop c4, and here he took on c6 and castles. Yeah, white has given up the bishop pair, but he has established a nice pawn on e5 that secures some advantage in space. And he has a pretty easy development. Rook e1, d3, knight d2. Yeah, pretty easy development, but Nakamura plays c4, and I really like this move. That's a good decision, I think. Not playing a routine move, but pushing the c-pawn. This pawn move really asks white, okay, how are you going to set up your pieces? Do you want to really keep the pawn on d2? Don't you want to move it sometime? And if he moves it, well, we can change the c-pawn for the d-pawn. And this is what happened in the game. He played d3. And now we have exchanged our doubled c-pawn for the d-pawn. This is nice, I think. And black wants to fight for the center with d6. Yeah, also you must get your bishop out. Now it is maybe possible even to develop with tempo. Yeah, c4 was played. Yeah, keeping this knight at bay. And black took on e5. This is motivated, of course, by the fact that black has 2 bishops. You want to open up as much as possible. And in the concrete situation, there are also some tactical considerations. Yeah, white here with the queen hanging on d3 must exchange, which puts your rook on the d file. And one point is, what is white's move now? He took on e5. and bishop f5. What I meant with tactical considerations is the long diagonal here. A move like knight d7 can easily be a problem for white, as yeah, you're pinned with the knight on e5. This makes this position not so easy to play for white. It seems that the next move by Morozovich already is a slight mistake. And if we look at the engine analysis, it comes up with the move bishop to c3. It's a bit a weird move, but it has some point. The bishop on c3 is actually protected by the knight on b1, and we maybe are able to just retreat the knight. Let's say something like this: rook c8 and knight f3. Now we have chances to get this bishop exchanged. If we look at this, for example, the position immediately shifts in white's favor as the bishops are gone, and now white has a slight advantage due to black having 3 pawn islands. Yeah, those pawns are somewhat weak, and white with 2 pawn islands has a slightly more comfortable position. Black probably does not want to exchange. He wants to remove the bishop and then try to play with f65. But here white has gained this idea and maybe get the knight out later. This seems to be quite okay, this bishop c3 idea, trying to exchange. But he played f4, which looks very normal. But after knight d7, there is a slight problem here. What should white do now? It's not so easy to even make a move. Yeah, you cannot, let's say, play knight c3. Yeah, as black takes and directly invades here. Looks very uncomfortable and really should be avoided. Yeah, knight a3 is what he played. Knight d2, yeah, okay, fails completely, losing a piece. Yeah, and what else is there? He played knight a3 as mentioned, and now Nakamura took it. Bishop takes, and now a very important moment, very important. It sometimes can happen if you see some less experienced players playing that they exchange lots of pieces. They want to exchange stuff because they think it gets let's say more manageable, the position. It's easier to play, but very often the exchange is the wrong idea. Bishop f8 here is much stronger. You need to preserve your bishop, and you have a threat here. Black is threatening f6 and e5 with an attack on the loose knight on a3. The knight on a3, look at this piece. Yeah, white certainly didn't want to do it, but he didn't really have much of a choice. After f4 he was in trouble. The knight on a3 has no square to go to. Look at the bishop. Yeah, white is in fact trying to get rid of this piece, but of course black is playing just h5. Yeah, securing the great bishop on f5. Knight b1. You need to get this piece into play. On a3 it's really terrible. And king f7 and e6. Very important. Getting the bishop back into play. On b4, on c5. There are those two possibilities that come into mind. And note that black also has invasion squares on the d file. d2 and d3. Very important. A much more comfortable position for black here. Yeah, Morozovich is trying to defend, but it's very tricky. a5 is typical. You want a5, a4, trying to exchange your pretty much useless a pawn on a4, possibly on b3 to take there, so that at the end b3 can in fact even become a weakness. So a typical device, this a5 move. And white retreats to c3 to stop a4. Rook d3 and knight a4. Yeah, this is really showing how tricky it is to allow a4. White just wants to block this. Black is activating his pieces to the utmost. Bishop to d2. To f1 here. Must cover f4. And rook d8. Yeah, white is under huge pressure. Very uncomfortable position. Bishop c1, and of course retreating, not exchanging. You only want to get one of the bishops exchanged in as a trade-off for something really good. Yeah, you want a pawn, 2 pawns in exchange, whatever, something serious. Other than that, you will keep the bishops on the board and keep the pressure on. Yeah, rook d1. And here, in this very unattractive position, Milosevic was faced with the threat of rook f1, king f1, bishop d3. So let's say white plays something, I don't know, it does not make much sense. Check. I know. There's this thing happening, losing in exchange. This is the threat, and you need to do something against it, of course. He, at the end, he played bishop knight to b2 to cover that. But there was a second threat, and this is the one played now. Check. Takes. d3 is covered, but the bishop can also go to b1 and attack this pawn chain. And it turns out that this is not defensible. No? Something like this, for example. You just go here and take everything off. He played knight to a4. And now, yeah, the exchange is lost. He has not blundered this. He was just being faced with the decision, giving up the queen side or giving up the exchange. So he gave up the exchange. But of course, now we enter a technical stage that Nakamura is doing quite nicely.
Check.
We can
check.
Look at it a bit later. This traded, and the rook invades. Black didn't really have a big choice than to give up the e-pawn, but you want to have your rook activated, and it's very important in this endgame. Here Black is in control totally. White cannot do anything much. So what you need to do is keep patient, don't rush, and slowly try to accumulate your advantages. There is no big bonus for winning quickly. The thing is to win at all and do it safely. And Nakamura is just probing here and there, trying to improve. It's not like he's making very obvious progress, but yeah, slowly, yeah, gaining space on the queen, on the king side with g5. And now g4.
Check.
This means that the knight cannot go to f3. The knight is limited. It cannot go to f3, it cannot go to e4 as the king is controlling this. And the knight has no real square on the first rank. So he also must watch out for the pawn on b3. And now Black has a winning idea. And this is, of course, cutting the king on the third rank and entering with your own king. After this, here Milosevic resigned. Yeah, there's absolutely no defense here. You are in some sort of a Zugzwang. The knight cannot move without giving up the pawn. And if you move the king, let's say here, you have the choice. You can enter here, or you can also switch over to win the g2 pawn. It's also good. So a very nice performance by Nakamura. He had won this game fairly convincingly, of course. Also 1 or 2 shaky games against Van Vele. I think he was pretty much lost, but won anyway in wild complications. And yeah, Nakamura's fate really decided in a way also in round 10, when he faced the most successful player of the second half, and this is Levin Aronian. Let me load the game. Game loaded. Yeah, this was Aronian Nakamura. They were both very close to the top, so it was this game to decide what happens next. And Nakamura is playing the Queen's Gambit accepted again. This seems to be an opening that he has prepared for this event with some offbeat lines. One offbeat line was e4, b5 that he had played before against Potkin. This is better than it looks, b5. It looks a bit strange. In lots of introductory books on the Queen's Gambit, it is said that you cannot do this at all, this b5 business, but there are cases where you can do it. It leads to murky play. After knight f3, by the way, there are also ideas like that with a6, b5, or sometimes there are also ideas where Black is trying to keep the pawn with bishop e6, not immediately, but something like that. It looks totally strange, but this is really an opening line that has some merit. Aronian plays e3, and I think one reason is that this is the most straightforward way to get the pawn back. Here b5 really is not a good idea after e4, as you don't even have c6. This is not that. This is the well-known kindergarten trick to win the rook. So you cannot really do something like that. And Nakamura is playing e5. This is really the choice to play if you want to keep it independent from the Queen's Gambit accepted main lines. Black, of course, can just play this and play the absolute main line. But this is probably not what Nakamura had prepared. He wanted some independent lines, so he went e5. Not a bad choice. d e5 is really
check.
Just comfortable for black. He will get the e5 pawn back. So bishop c4 is played, takes. And now we have a very typical isolated queen pawn position, but an isolated queen pawn position that is not happening that often with e-file open. Very often you have it with the pawn on e7 or then coming to e6. Here the e-file is open and this diagonal is open for pressure on f7. So this is a slightly different affair than many other isolated queen pawn positions. Knight, bishop d6, knight f3, knight f6. And now this is a very crucial point. White here has two basic choices. He can play castles and play a typical full, let's say, middle game with queens on the board and everything. Or he can play the somewhat newer move, queen to e2 check. And this is what Aronian did. I really like this move. I must admit, if we look at what happens, I think this is a very good choice. This check is slightly uncomfortable for black. You can retreat the bishop, but then white has gained something with the queen on e2, having one sort of a tempo. Castles coming, rook e1 looks slightly better. Maybe rook to d1. Yeah, queen e2 is okay in this position. Yeah, black might be able to play castles and rook e8 to put it opposed the queen, but then you just go to c2 and still have gained something with the bishop being back on e7. Yeah, Nakamura played queen e7. This is also the move that's normally recommended.
Check.
And now the queen trade. Yeah, and here after the queen trade, black, yeah, has a choice. Can play bishop e7 or can take with the king. Taking with the king looks uncomfortable. Moving the king early, so he took with the bishop. And now white just continues to develop. There is this idea. Black needs to probably cover that. And he did this with a6. Rook e1. And here we come to an interesting point already. To be honest, I really like white already. I don't really think I would like to play black here. Nakamura played bishop to d8, which does not look very active. Bishop d6 looks more normal, but if you consider something like this, this has been played before. Bishop to g5, knight bd7, and knight e5. Yeah, this just looks like white is somewhat better. He's got all the activity. He's got pressure on f7. I would very much prefer to be white here. It's probably not the end of the world, but I don't know. White feels more comfortable. Played bishop to d8 and now bishop f4. Simple but strong. Developing the bishop and always looking at this pawn. And you cannot easily move it. Yeah? Want to move the pawn? Okay, I'm going to win your rook here on f8, or win the exchange. Very embarrassing moment. So c6 is not possible. And this means you always have to, for the moment, guard the c7 pawn with a piece. This will be the bishop on d8. And yeah, do you want to keep it on d8 all the time? Yeah, Nakamura is trying to get his pieces developed. Rook c1 on the half open c-file, knight b6, and bishop to b3. Yeah, h6. Tough to give black some advice. He probably wanted to prevent something coming to g5, getting some luft for the king, but it's difficult to do something active, really. d5, yeah, a typical advance, making sure that c6 is never ever going to happen. And yeah, it also frees space for knight to d4 maybe. Yeah, it hems in this bishop a bit, but the pawn on d5 is just a huge accomplishment. Bishop f5, trying to get it out, and h3. A little improving move, but also with aggressive intention. So white is not just playing h3 for nothing. He wants to gain space on all sides of the board. g4 is the first step with this. And now knight e5. Yeah, just a great position for white. Bishop to e8, h4. Yeah, very tough to play this position. What should black do now? Yeah, Nakamura played knight f2 d7. I don't think this is really great, but it's tough to play this position. Really tough. The computer wants to play something like bishop e7, which looks very unhuman, putting this bishop right into this e-file. A move like knight d7 looks very nice at first. It is nice for white, as I'm not saying it isn't, but
check. This
here might be still a defensible position. Black has two bishops, the initiative. White has two bishops and the initiative, more space, but maybe something like this is something you can hold. Not much fun, but can try. Yeah, he played this, and here I think Aronian even could have played better than what he did. He took on d7, which preserves a clear advantage, but it seems that instead knight d3 was even better, and I'm a bit surprised that he didn't play it, because it's a fairly logical thing not to exchange pieces when black is so boxed in, and it also has a tactical justification. It just attacks this bishop here, and how do you protect the bishop? If you go knight f6, there's g5, and you lose material. You actually only have, yeah, you can take here if you want, but then bishop c7 looks fantastic. Now with the d pawn being a passer, knight b5 to d6 coming. Fantastic position. Or you can play king here, then I go g5, and here you're almost zugzwangt. Black has no square. Whatever. You can play, I don't know, rook c8 to a8 or something. This is probably even stronger than what he played. He took and played g5. Comparable, but it's probably not as convincing. It is, however, a very difficult position for black. White is now slowly pushing. d6, the next step. Yeah, if black would take now,
check.
You would have, yeah, this is what you face. Yeah.
Check. Check.
Just one way of losing the game quickly. Yeah, c5 was necessary, and now
check.
White is shifting his play even over to this threatening checkmate, and it's really a sorry state. The only thing that black can do here to try to defend this is what he played. He played king to g8. Yeah, you also cannot do this.
Check. Check.
And white is winning as well.
Check.
And here the check goes back, and bishop b3. This is what he needed to allow. Yeah, threatening rook h8, mate, and attacking c4. So black is just losing this pawn. He had no alternative really. The idea was to now go here, and this has happened. This has happened in the game, attacking f4 and attacking g5. So white is, as he wants to keep the material, yeah, not forced, yeah, but he took here. didn't want to go king g3. This was also a sensible option. Something like this is also a very nice position for white. But okay, this is okay. He took it and played king g3. White is keeping his extra pawn. He's got d6 as a passer, and it is still very, very uncomfortable to play. Here, however, I think Nakamura had a better defense. He could have played king to f7, and this has one very important difference to the game. If now bishop e3, black can take, and after this we'll be able to approach with the king. That's a very important resource. In the game he played this, and now this bishop e3 was a far bigger problem, as after the trade this didn't happen, but after the trade white now does not have any problems with the d-pawn. He will just play f4 and possibly try to regroup the knight to e5. Yeah, it's just one possibility. Or rook e5, white is in total control. He retreated, and now white is transferring his bishop to e5. This is covering everything, yeah. f4 pawn, d6 pawn, and yeah, white is in clear control. Now he's going
Check.
over to the queen side with the king.
Check.
Trying to decide the game there. Yeah, just white has time. There's no need to rush things. Yeah, tough decision, but he tries to get to opposite colored bishops. But it's very, very difficult to give black some advice here. It does not seem to be enough for a good defense, but what to do here? Even this, which looks a bit counterintuitive, trading rooks to opposite colored bishops, even this here is a total win for white. It's just too much with the white king invading. One problem is that if black goes a4, white is not taking, but plays b4. The e5 bishop is always controlling the a pawn, and here white is just going to, or king a6, going to promote the pawn. Yeah, he gave it up directly, but there is no defense whatsoever.
Check.
Yeah, and here the final stroke is b7. It's quite nice. After that Nakamura resigned. Have to take
Check.
it, king here, and now d7 is threatening actually mate in a couple of moves, so the only thing to avoid the mate
Check.
is this, and this is only delaying things for a while. White is of course easily winning. So Nakamura lost this game in round 10, meaning that he is somewhat behind now. Carlsen leads with 8 points out of 10, and he's followed by Aronian with 7.5 points. So this was a very crucial game. In round 11, we see the game Aronian-Carlsen, which will be very, very important, of course, for the final standings. There is a huge number of players with 7 points. Caruana, Svidler, Grishuk, Anand, Tomaszewski, a couple of players. They also still have chances, but what they would need to do is probably to beat Carlsen. Or let's say beat the winner of Aronian-Carlsen. In the last couple of rounds, lots of the top matchups are already have already been played. So there will be some pairings where Carlsen, Aronian, the top guys, will get slightly relatively weaker opposition. So just the normal 2,700 player. So it will be very important not to stumble against those guys. Also, Anand on 7 points. He's a fantastic rapid player. You never know what's going to happen if Anand is playing Carlsen. This is a very cautious, a very crucial matchup, of course, and might going to happen. You never know. Okay, I hope you liked it. I'll do a final wrap up of the last 5 rounds, certainly featuring Aronian-Carlsen. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.